All right. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and today I am joined again by my guy, Asher Smith. We are back. We are ready to go. College basketball season is in the air. I mean, we're recording this on Friday, and the season starts on Monday, so I'm super pumped to have Asher here. I mean, we're going to be discussing all things college basketball, our third year doing it, our second official full year. So I'm super excited. Asher, thanks for coming on the pod, man.
Of course, happy to be here. This is the year that Jake's Takes becomes a college basketball pod. Our predictions are going to be correct, and I'm stamping my end of year return on that. We're going to come back and realize we chose every single team that you should be looking out for in March, and that's why we're here doing it before anyone else does.
I love it. I love it. I actually thought we did okay last year. We had some
better.
picks. We're getting better. I mean, I think my inside scoop on Oakland last year kind of helped a little bit, but you know what?
You might have been the only podcast on Oakland in the country, so
Yeah,
that might have helped.
Maybe. So that might help the show. Maybe the ratings go up. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm excited for this year. There's a lot of twists and turns that we're going to discuss here. But to start, we got to focus on UConn. They're unbelievable. And I was talking to you before the show, and I was like, man, I was doing all this prep, and I just don't see UConn anywhere. Nobody's talking about them, and it makes no sense to me. Like, it's the least media covered team that I've ever seen repeat just in the history of sports. Like, it's flat out insane. And I listened to a lot of Dan Hurley. I think his offense is just so much fun to watch. We talked about it all year last year. And that's kind of the way he wants it. That's kind of what you were saying. So talk to me a little bit about what you see from UConn this year. And is a three-peat possible? We talked about the repeat all year last year. It happened. So now it's three-peat time, and it's crazy to talk about.
Yeah, I think last year we had a segment at the end of the first episode and was like, oh, now we have to talk about UConn because they won it all last year, right?
Yep.
No one wanted them last year to be good, and they ran the table and won it all. So we should have been talking about them for 50 minutes the entire episode. But we're in the same situation, right? They lost some NBA talent. They lost some grad transfers that made a difference. And then they reloaded, right? It's the exact same formula that they've been running for 2 years. So why wouldn't they be number one? Like, I understand that other teams are in maybe harder conferences this year or just have more transfer portal action than UConn had, but they're doing the exact same thing they've done the last 2 years, and there's no reason why viewers can't expect to see them in the Final Four, number one overall seed, doing what they are. In my opinion, they should be the number one team in America until they lose a game, right? Yeah. And I'm just looking at the Big East, and this is no knock against what they're doing in the Big East. Creighton is a great team. They were on my to watch last year, and I went away for them in the tournament, and they ended up being super good, right? Like, they could do some damage. St. John's is good again. UConn is going to run that conference until some other conference offers them billions of dollars to leave. Like, they are a national brand. They are a national recruiting brand. Their coach isn't leaving, right? He had Lakers offers, and he came back. I just think that the formula they have, bringing in guys from the portal who have played actual games, bringing in freshmen who want to go to the NBA, right? Like, it's what every coach has dreamed of, and he has a basketball-only school, really, who wants to fund his program. So, I would love to hear your thoughts on UConn, but I think we should definitely give them the time they deserve as, they can definitely three-peat.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're flat out insane. And I'm literally on CBS Sports' contenders list right now. And in their tier one, UConn's last. They put them in the tier one, but they're last. And it's like, it's crazy to think about because this team has won 2 straight. And yes, they're not bringing everybody back. They lost a lot to the draft with Stephon Castle and Donovan Clingan and people like that. Like, people are gone now. But Caravan's still there. They still got pieces that flow in their offense. Solo Ball's a really good freshman that they got. Aiden Mahoney's a lights out shooter from St. Mary's. Like, they got pieces here that they're just going to install in their offense, and it's going to work, man. Like, what they do, and a lot of the stuff I've been reading about them is how much they installed during the summer. They work 95% on their offense during the summer because of how many actions they run off of it. There's a zoom action. There's a blind pig action. There's all these actions that go off of each other that just work. And it's so much fun to watch as, like, an aspiring coach, just watching all that. And you're like, whoa, like, this is so cool. Watching JJ Redick have Dan Hurley on his podcast and them just talk about basketball, the two maybe future, like, Lakers coaches, like, you talking about basketball is crazy, like, it's flat out crazy. So these this UConn team, man, like going into the season, like they're clearly my favorite just because of the amount of respect I've had on them. And I don't think people are putting enough respect on the fact that winning 2 national championships in a row is so hard. And they've been able to do it. And I really love their coaching staff and everything that they've done. And like you were talking about with the Big East this year, I feel like their main threat will probably be Creighton. There's a lot of pieces that are a little bit lower. I like Xavier this year. I like St. John's this year. There's pieces that'll be a little bit better, but UConn's near the top of the Big East. We're going to see if somebody can compete with them. I'm really excited, though. I think they're clearly top tier looking at college basketball this year, and I'm looking forward to it, man. UConn's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think that some viewers are going to watch them lose, 3 of the first 10 games against top 5 teams and be like, oh, Jake and Asher were wrong again about UConn. But make sure you watch the next game or even the second half of that game and how they respond, right? Like this team is built for March. It's built to weather the Big East and get a high seed, right? It's not built to, run the table from night one. Like Dan Hurley learns a lot about his team. They have a freshman, I think Liam McNeely is his name. Yep. He's number 10 in the country. He's 6'7", small forward. Like he's everything that coaches want, on their team defensively. And he's probably going to average 13 to 20 points a game, right? Like there's people that need to develop that aren't going to happen. And that's why coaches, as you know, schedule tough tees at the beginning of the year because they know exactly their identity. They know where they need to work on and where they might need to lean a little bit at the end of games. And, I would just say bet the long money on UConn. They may get beat up a little bit once they have to play these, larger teams, but they're built for the Big East. They're built for the NCAA tournament. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited for sure. And, putting the fact that I feel like it's UConn and everybody else, I think is important until somebody proves that they can knock them off. And I'm excited to see if somebody can. So I'm looking forward to it when March comes. But let's transition into everybody else. Let's start in the Big Ten here. We're more Big Ten people just because we grew up on Michigan. We grew up on Michigan basketball. So let's start in Ann Arbor. We got to see them a decent amount in their exhibition game against Oakland, and I got to see them in person. And I was just so impressed with the big man play. They looked flat out awesome and were really shooting the lights out of the ball. Danny Wolf is really impressive to me. And then the Florida Atlantic big, I can't pronounce his name. I won't even try, but he's just insane. He's a flat out monster, really physical around the rim. He looked really, really good. So Asher, from what you've seen of Michigan, they had their other exhibition game. They beat Toledo in a close game. Talk to me about what you've seen from Michigan so far.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like the little brother here talking to Oakland, who won a tournament game more recently than Michigan did. So I was glad to see us get a clutch charity exhibition victory against the Oakland Grizzlies because that is not easily earned. No, I like Michigan. I think, starting at the bottom of the Big Ten contenders, Michigan definitely deserves a spot, right? Like they have missed the tournament the last 2 years. They decided that it's unacceptable. They went and got a new head coach, one of the more sought after head coaches, but still young, trying to prove himself. Actually used to live in Ann Arbor in his young coaching career, so knows the area. And he did what new coaches are doing these days. He brought people from the portal. He brought Vlad, can't pronounce his last name, the 7th player from FAU. He brought in more height from Danny Wolf. And then he brought key freshmen with him, right? He proved he can recruit Florida. He can still recruit in the area. And, this is what my team's going to be. So crazy to see 5 new starters, right? That's usually a recipe for a team that's not going to gel as quickly as Michigan looked like they are. But they'll have a couple tests, at the beginning of the year with Wake Forest, with a couple other Power 5 teams that you just got to go through to see if you're legit. I'm definitely interested to see how they do in the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is a real wild card. It's definitely some of the weaker teams in the Power 5 conferences. And that's just because, Purdue's been running it for so long and key people have departed that we really don't know who's going to step up, right? Will this be the year that Indiana makes a stand? Will this be the year that Purdue solidifies himself as a Final Four team for multiple years, right? Like we just don't know. It's wide open. And why not Michigan, right? Like they clearly made the move that we're going to make the tournament every year. Like that's standard for us. We're bringing in a coach who has success in the tournament. He's going to do it. So I'm very impressed. I think that they have a good combination of players that are super talented, but a coach that runs his system, right? You got to come in to learn his system. That's how you play basketball. That's something that John Beilein did really well. He ran a complex system that worked very well against teams that were sleeping and got him 20 plus wins a year, right? I think that Coach Decime can definitely do that. I'm just interested to see if these guys can handle the Big Ten as opposed to the American Conference that FAU was running last year, right? It's just a little colder, a little more easy to get beat up, right? Like the winters are long in Michigan. I'm just wondering if these players have what it takes to make it out till March.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Some of the stuff I saw that I was really impressed with was the aggressiveness, like defensively. They were all over him. Trey Donaldson, I think is the point guard's name from Auburn. He looked outstanding. He's just such an aggressive defender. He was like this at Auburn too, and he's just really impressive. I like what he brings. And then they got multiple guards that can shoot the ball. Their shooting was just on display in that game, and I feel like with Michigan, like the shooting was a little bit of an issue. They struggled with their shooting, and having that change, I think it's just going to be so important going into Big Ten play. So if they're able to keep the shooting up, we'll see. And I think that's going to be a big question going into it. And if their bigs can hold up, like we talked about it pre-show, how we'd like the bigs, but physicality, can they hold up? And I mean, like even talking to players after the game, like it's just like they're good, they're really skillfully good, but like on the glass, we can get these rebounds. They can't do that. And going against Big Ten bigs, it's different. It's a very, very physical type of game. So I'm really interested to see how that's going to work and how they look as it continues. And I'm excited to see it because Dusty May runs a lot of good offense and a lot of good sets. And, they'll be a fun team to watch looking forward. So I'm excited for that there. Another team that had a lot of change and is new to the Big Ten this year is Washington. They spent a lot of money going into their team this year. Coleman Hawkins on the team. You got Great Ozabar, Chris Conway, my guy, as their one of their backups. So like they're loaded and they got a lot of talent here. They had a tough loss in their exhibition game to Boise State recently, and with Washington, I'm excited to see them go out this year. They're going to be new. Asher, talk to me about what you think from like Washington, a UCLA, USC, these new guys coming into the Big Ten. How do you think that's going to mesh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the four West Coast teams are just such a weird fit in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah.
Like clearly the football history was there. It makes sense. The Rose Bowl, like they were Big Ten teams. Basketball is a little different, they were used to playing different competition. I wouldn't say it was weaker because Pac-12 historically has been pretty good come tournament time, but it might not have been as deep as the Big Ten was, right? So what did the two weaker teams, USC and Washington, do? In my opinion, they went out and got great coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Great Ospor, like you said, following his coach to Washington, that's a great sign. Musselman at USC, that's a great sign. These are people that have played in, deep conferences and won and got to the tournament multiple times, right? Like that's what you need if you're going to weather the Big Ten. So
yeah,
I agree with you that Washington's definitely the interesting story because they're reloaded a little different than the others. The others might have some of that previous success that they're riding on. Oregon was my team to watch last year. They ended up making a deep run at just late in the Pac-12. UCLA obviously is going to be a blue blood no matter when they're playing, and people have high expectations of their coach this year, right? Like they really want to put it together because they've had some great teams, some national championship, final game teams that they actually, want to see some success out of. So will Washington be able to fit in there? I'm not sure this year, but I like the direction they're going. I like the new coach addition, similar to USC. I think it just changes the culture. Kind of realize that, hey, this Big Ten basketball money's legit. We're going to have a pretty solid program, a lot of eyeballs on us. We're going to have to go to play Purdue. We're going to play Illinois. We're going to have to play Ohio State, like all these big names on just weeknights. And that's just a very exciting thing for their fans and, for their programs.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's going to be a weird dynamic, I think. I think it's going to take everybody some getting used to seeing these teams playing these Big Ten opponents. But the main one I'm looking forward to is UCLA. I think they're near the top. Mick Cronin, like you said, there's a lot of pressure here. You got to win. You got to win in a stacked conference like this. And I feel like it really it makes it where there's no off night in the Big Ten anymore. There just isn't. Like you got all these teams and they can all play. Like Oregon last year, a tournament team, really, really good. I like what you're saying with Musselman. USC spent the money on their basketball program trying to get them going. And Washington just spent a ton of money to get all these guys and get everything going. So there's a lot of pressure on Washington here too. So I'm excited to see it. I really think it's going to mesh and make the Big Ten product a little more interesting because I don't think it's as top heavy as it was. Purdue was the top tier team last year. Everybody was talking about, and I actually ended up going to a Purdue practice this summer. Like I feel like it's a different feel without Edey. It's a different feel. And, you can tell there's a chip on their shoulder now because Edey's not there to bail them out. And they practice really, really well. I was super impressed with Braden Smith. He looks unbelievable to start the year. He's in crazy condition and is running all over the floor. And they got multiple pieces. Fletcher Lawyer, just an outstanding shooter who's back. This guard set, like we talked about it in our first year doing the podcast, they were young and we were scared what was going to happen there. And they've taken that step, and I feel like they're going to take another step this year. They're going to look really good. And they got multiple freshmen coming in that are super outstanding for them. They got guard depth. They got a lot of pieces that's really going to help. I am a little concerned with the big guys. Their last year, their big guy, their backup's from Sweden. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's a pretty physical guy and will have some up and down moments. So I think it might take him a little bit of time, but that's why they play such a stacked out of conference schedule to get him ready. So I'm excited for Purdue overall. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to win the Big Ten again. I think Braden Smith has to easily be the best player in the Big Ten for them to do that. So I'm looking forward to it. Another team in the same state is Indiana, and I haven't done too much on them. So I was hoping you could kind of take the lead with Indiana here. So talk to me about what you've seen from Indiana. You were really high on them last year. So talk to me about what you see this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you said is perfect. The Big Ten runs through the state of Indiana, and it's not because they're both stacked. It's because they just have had recent success, right? It's wide open. If Ohio State wants it, they can have it. If Rutgers, the team we'll talk about later, wants it, they can have it. It is, quote unquote, a weak conference, but that just means it's looking for who's next, right? Like the questions are, who's going to run this for the next 5 years? Does Painter have something going, or was it just Zach Edey, right? Can Tom Izzo have some late career magic? We don't know. Indiana's interesting. Indiana has been, in all opinions of it, underperforming the last 4 years, right? And what do I mean by that? They have 5 stars coming in. They have Mike Woodson, NBA level head coach, right? They're giving him another shot this year when many people thought, last year's exit meant he's going to get fired, right? We're talking about a program that's won 5 national championships and is typically a basketball school is now all over football media, right? Like things are just like completely changing at Indiana. And the basketball program's like, hey, wait a second, like, how about this, right?
Yeah, so really I never thought I'd be talking about Indiana football like that.
Never. No, I never thought that November would be when Indiana fans wanted to talk basketball. But, here we are. So, football, here we are. So, it'll be interesting. What I do like about Indiana is that they have kept core guys around while bringing in 5-star talent, right? What they've lacked, I think, in the past has been seniors. And that's just something that, you saw Michigan without last year just completely crumble. Like certain teams, like if you don't have senior leadership, it's going to be tough, right? And Indiana, had some luck with Trace Jackson Davis, right, sticking around, but that was really it. They were like, please, like win us this game, and it just wasn't enough in the tournament. This year, they finally have some of those younger guys who have gone through the ranks, being juniors, seniors, fifth-year guys, that I think Mike Woodson's actually going to be able to rely on, late in the Big Ten season. Obviously, with Zach Edey gone, the pressure is on the guards at Purdue. Will they be able to outscore Indiana's team, one that's typically known for high levels of scoring with 5-star talent that they're able to bring in? Like, I really don't know. It's going to be an awesome battle between the two of them. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just think it's pressures on Indiana, right? It's like time to prove that, what we're giving you is going to produce a great product, or, probably going to be a new coaching staff next year, which is a super interesting time, right? It could either be an extension or you're gone, which I'm looking forward to. I think Woodson's up for the task. I really like the guards in Indiana as well. I think they can go toe-to-toe with the Purdue guys. We'll see. I'm very interested.
Yeah. I mean, it's Mike Woodson's 4th or 5th year on the coaching staff. Like, you'd think, okay, like you've built the program. This is your time, right? And that's what I'm excited for Indiana. I feel like there's a lot of pressure there. It's like, okay, we got to make the tournament this year. Like there's no doubt in our minds that we're good enough to do it. So I'm excited for Indiana too. I think Indiana, Purdue, that aspect, if they're both near the top of the Big Ten, it's going to be interesting. So I'm excited there. There's 3 teams in the Big Ten that like some people are up on, some people are down on, and I feel like I'm really struggling with these 3. And that would be Ohio State, Michigan State, and Rutgers. We talk about these 3, and a lot of people are super high on Rutgers just because of all the freshman talent that's coming in. Like, it looks awesome. Ohio State, New coach, Jake Diebler. They spent a lot of money. They were trying to get people in NIL, and people are like, oh, Ohio State, they're going to be up, new coach, all this. And then Michigan State here, they don't even go transfer portal at all. They're bringing back a lot of people, and you just say their name because Tom Izzo's still there. So, like, on paper, it's like, what, kind of what are we doing here? So talk to me about these three teams and your opinion on these three.
Yeah, so I think to start, Michigan State is exactly where they should be, and people are gonna say that they were overrated, last year, and then a couple of their tournament teams the last 5 years have been underrated. So, like, how do we really know what this team, is going to be? But last year was interesting. Last year they had a couple of people who were fifth, sixth year seniors that stuck around a little too long and really ended up hurting their offense. Right, one of their main point guards last year was AJ Hogard, who shouldn't have even been playing. But Jeremy Fears, their backup, got shot before the season started, right? And now he's so, like, just crazy things happened where they were like, oh, veteran guards means that Michigan State's going to be good. They still need talent, right? And that's what they had this year in abundance. Last year they had some people who were experienced, sure, but not experienced in winning those big games. This year they have the talent to do that, right? Xavier Booker coming back. Some people thought he was going to be top 10 in the NBA last year. He decided to develop. He's back at Michigan State. He's going to be playing 40 minutes, right? Like I said, Jeremy Fears and their other starting point guard, number 5, I forget his name. People that have been around the program for 3 years are going to be running the ball. People that can score a little better, right? Jaden Akins can finally step up into kind of like, I call it that Kobe Buffkin role, where it's like now he's scoring 20 points a game. And it's just a different flavor, besides just watching your point guard, dribble around screens and shoot for 40 minutes, right? And Michigan State has depth at all 5 positions. So I'm interested to see what they do. I think that there's definitely a uncapped ceiling to their season, but I don't want to say the pressure's on Tom Izzo, because it never is. But it's like, how many times can we give you a loaded roster and you deliver us a Final Four or Elite Eight exit, right? It's like,
True.
That's great, but we need to hang another banner. What's the process in this 2020s version of Michigan State, right? Are we just going to be a team that competes and wins some fun games and then calls it a year? Or are we going to take all this talent that we're clearly spending a lot of money on and spending a lot of time on and actually win something, right? It's not win a championship or bust. They have young players, but at the same time, we really got to see something from this unit, because I think the Big Ten's wide open. There's no reason Michigan State can't do it. But when you're ranked right next to Michigan in terms of defensive efficiency and offensive projection, like, something's got to change there, right? You got to take the step up. The coaches can obviously do it. The players got to respond to that. So I'm excited to see them.
Yeah. No, I think State will be interesting. Yeah, I like with them. I just don't really know what to expect this year. It's they got a lot new. There's a couple new assistant coaches. There's a couple new players. So, like, it's really going to be interesting to me. And I feel like the Big Ten, just being deeper as it is, they're just not the main story anymore. Like last year, I feel like there was a lot more hype on, like, the new freshmen, everybody coming in. So, like, there's still that aspect of them, but you just don't know what to expect, So I'm excited to see their first couple games. They always play a really, really difficult schedule. So I'm looking forward to seeing them in action so I can tell a little bit more. But I feel like it's a team like you need to see on the court first in order to make a determination. And there's a lot of teams like that. There's so much new in college basketball with the transfer portal and with all that. And Michigan State, they're not one that changed that much. But like you said, there were so many different obstacles that they had to go through last year where you were like, oh, they didn't really get an identity last year. So now I'm really interested to see if they can solidify that identity. So that'll be exciting there. Looking at Rutgers and looking at Ohio State, these two. Talk to me about these two, who you like more out of those two.
Yeah, so I actually have a pretty split opinion on the two of them. Rutgers are on my team to watch list. Ohio State's on my overrated list. And obviously going to get eye rolls from that because of being a Michigan grad. And I will take that on the chin. But Ohio State being top 30 in KenPom after being, one of the lowest teams the last 2 years, it doesn't compute with me, right? Like, the assistant coach being a team's guy, that's great. You got him from the same program. He didn't come from a different team that's bringing over a bunch of experience to start the year, right? This is his first time being a head coach, and he's doing it from Ohio State itself, right? with the same team that those players didn't do like anything with last year. So obviously the NIL has gone up. They did bring in new players. They brought in awesome freshmen. They lost some people that were probably the right people to lose, right? They're growing as a program. The excitement's back. That's what a new coach brings. I need to see it on the court before I believe it, right? There's nothing in the headlines this offseason that said, oh, Ohio State's going to run the table, right? They need to show me with actions, which I think they definitely can do. I think their head coach has the right idea of how to run a program in the Big Ten. I think that he has the players' trust, which we don't have to worry about, which is super awesome. I just can't see them as a top 30 team until they can beat Purdue and Indiana on the road, in a night in February, right? I just need to see that body of work. Versus Rutgers, everyone's going to be like, oh, well, how can you see that with them? They have two 18-year-olds running the show. They've done it in the past, right? They've been building this for 5-6 years under Steve Pikiell. Like, the coach is all about bringing this talent in, and now he finally has 2 top 3 future NBA picks on his team, right? It's not obviously the end of the line for him. He's going to hopefully start this process of bringing in talent, producing them, taking it to the NBA, but he's taken lesser teams to greater heights in the Big Ten before, and now he has 2 of the most talented people in the nation on his team, right? So I'm high on Rutgers. I love to see that their potential. They've upset Purdue in the last 3 years with, really nothing on their roster. Now they're, have NBA future lottery picks. Ohio State, I'm going to need to see it in person. I'm not believing it based on the offseason.
I love it. I'm in a complete agreement because like a lot of people were just all in on Jake Diebler once he made that turnaround with that Ohio State team last year. They did have a turnaround. They did have expectations, but that's what happens when you change coaches. Like everybody was in on Antonio Pierce when he took the Vegas job, and look how that's going now. Like it's it's how it works. And that's not a knock on Diebler at all. I feel like they're still going to be a very, very solid team. They got a lot of pieces there, and they spent money. Their team's pretty deep, and they'll be another team in the Big Ten that you don't want to see every night. With Rutgers, it's just like when you got 2 top 5, like 5-star recruits, that's just insane. The last team that had that was Zion and RJ Barrett,
right,
and Cam Reddish. Like those. They had 3. Rutgers has 2. That means they're going to be an elite team. So I love what you're saying there. And Rutgers has shocked teams in the past, and I feel like they're going to be able to do that this year. They could be near the top of the Big Ten, and to be honest, that would make it so interesting because we haven't seen Rutgers at that point, like get to that level. So them taking the next step, I think that's what people are expecting, and I feel like it could happen. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited
the
to see it.
idea of Rutgers having to fly to UCLA on a Wednesday night to play a game at 10 p.m. Eastern time is just, I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's what makes college basketball now. So I'm excited. I'm pumped for it. But we're going to take a little break. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about top tier teams, overrated teams, and maybe some underrated teams as well. All right. Welcome back into the show. And let's get going. Let's talk about some top teams. We did a contenders draft, way too early contenders draft a while back. We didn't see much about like what exactly came in and stuff like that. But low key, like looking back on it, I still think it was a pretty good draft. Like we hit some good points. So now we got preview action. So we're just gonna go through 3 teams that we like 3 teams we're like, okay, blindfold, I want this team. We'll leave UConn out of it just because we talked about them. So top 3 teams, I'll give you the first pick. Just your favorite team coming in.
Has the size, has the talent, and the scoring ability that you're going to want to watch on Saturday morning on CBS, right? Like it's going to be the Duke of old in terms of players that the nation is either rooting for or rooting against, right? And they actually had some key departures, which was interesting, right? Like Mark Mitchell left. I think he's now in Missouri. Jeremy Roach left. He's in the Big 12 or something like that.
Baylor.
So they're getting rid of 5 stars, which is the craziest thing ever because they're bringing in so many. They have 3 of the top 20 again. It's like the 4th year in a row. Once as an assistant and now as a head coach that Shire's brought in top talent, right? And he's won games with him. He's won tournament games with him. Like this is going to be exciting for a while. And Duke haters might not like that idea. And I totally respect it, but Cooper Flagg embodies why you don't like that idea. They brought in the number 1 player from Maine. He's going to be a stud. I'm super excited to watch them.
No, I'm in complete agreement. Like, this Duke team is they're scary, man. Like, flat out scary. You're coming off a year where you lose to NC State in the Elite Eight. Like, that's just shocking. And then you get Cooper Flag. You get all these pieces to add to it. I mean, Caleb Foster is still there. Tyrese Proctor is still there. Like, this team is so scary. And the thing with Cooper Flag that's just so impressive to me is everybody's talking about this Olympic team, how special they are, like unbelievable. And then people forget that they scrimmaged like against 18-year-olds, people in college, and Cooper Flag looked like the best player on the floor. Like, that should just scare everybody. He looked unreal. I think he had like 20 in the game. They almost won the game. Like, that's against the top tier talent in the NBA. That's just scary to me. He's unreal. I think Duke's going to be so much fun to watch. I agree with you. I feel like they should be on everybody, near the top of everybody's board. Like, they're just unbelievable, and they're going to be really, really fun to watch. If I'm going to be picking anybody first, I think it's going to be Alabama, other than Duke here. And Alabama here, they're just special, absolutely special. Mark Sears, all these guys that are super talented. And I was at the BCAM coaching clinic a couple weeks ago, and one of their assistant coaches was one of the speakers. His name's Ryan Pannone. And he came from an NBA system and was talking about their style of offense and their spacing and everything they do to create their shots. And it's just really, really impressive, like, how much coaching and detail goes into everything they do. I've talked about the 4-point line in practice before. I've talked about all these things with their spacing and their detail. Like, their offensive details are just to a T. And teams like that, that's what UConn is. It's details to a T. Everything is done in a special way. And that's why you saw these two go at it in their Final Four game, with teams going like they were shooting a ballistic percentage, and Alabama was the team that gave UConn probably the most trouble. It's just the truth. And, I'm really, really excited with Alabama. When you got a top tier player like Marcus Sears coming back, it's going to be special here. I think they're going to be really, really good going into this year.
Yeah, I fully agree. They were next on my list. I think Mark Sears is awesome. I mean, again, coaching is great. Player talent is great. They're scoring at a clip that we haven't seen in the NCAA before, and they're doing it in the SEC, which is historically one of the best. I know Auburn down the road might be another team on our list, but Kentucky's down. Arkansas may be in the picture. Alabama's for sure there. They're a high contender to be the team that I picked to win it all. Make it a 2 or 3 seed, I still would pick them. So totally agree.
Love it.
My next team that I was going to talk about, I want to hear your thoughts as well, would be Houston, because I feel like they have gotten recognition the last 3 years, right? It's not like it's a surprise that people are picking Houston, right? It's fun now that they're in the Big 12, right? Big 12 is a crazy basketball conference. I think they're talking about adding the Zags, next year. Like, it's an absurd basketball conference. What's interesting about Houston is that they've consistently had top talent now, one of the best coaches in NCAA, right? And then the injury bug keeps hitting them. I'm just, interested. Like, why is their backcourt never healthy at the end of the year, right? Is this a freak accident thing? Is it just, that they're playing so much, high intensity basketball during the season, right? Like, LJ Cryer's back. He was one of the top 5 guys in college basketball in the last year, right? Like, there's no reason he can't be an RJ Davis, or he can't be a, top Naismith person this year. Mark Sears, like, he has everything there. He's got a talented team that's going to press like the whole game. They have a great defensive strategy. I don't think any reason against Houston being a Final Four team. I'm just waiting for them to prove me wrong, because they seem to always want to do it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like, Houston is one of my favorite teams to watch because of the aggressiveness of how they play defense. They're one of my favorite defensive teams in college basketball. And you talked about last year, it was depth. Depth was the problem. And this year, you got 9 returners, 9 guys coming back with LJ Cryer. Like, this is going to be huge on development. Like, how much dedication did these guys put in to get better? And if they got better, then I think they're a Final Four team. Easy. I really do, because I love how physical they play. I love everything about their defense. I love their offensive rebounding. I love Kelvin Simpson's system. So I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how much development comes into this program. And the Big 12 is just so stacked, stacked. So, like, seeing them against that talent every single night is going to be fun. So I'm with you. I think Houston, on paper, easily one of the best teams to look out for. And LJ Cryer, I think, will be one of the best players in the country. So I'm really looking forward to Houston as well. I love watching Kelvin Sampson teams play. Like, their defense
So
is just
good.
awesome. So good.
I think he
So
got
good.
fired from Indiana for texting a recruit or something like that back in the day. How crazy is that now that he's paying LJ Cryer millions to play for him? So just a hilarious career arc. But I think that he's gonna have a good year.
Hilarious career arc. I love it. I love it. I think the next team that I want to talk about a little bit is Iowa State, and that's on a similar note. Like, they got so many guys returning. Tamian Lipsey and Kayshawn Gilbert are the main guys returning, and it's their defense too. Like, it's Houston 1 and then Iowa State 2. And these two teams were just so much fun to watch last year. Iowa State was one of my teams I really, really liked the year before. They got a St. Mary's transfer and Joshua Jefferson. They're bringing in a Northern Iowa transfer, Nate Hayes. And these guys, like, they just fit in their defensive system. I think Iowa State will be near the top of the country in defense. And the only way they get to that top tier level is they got to elevate their offensive ceiling, because their offense wasn't great last year. And you got to see the shooting improve a little bit, and you got to see some of it just improve a little bit more. But overall, I really think Iowa State with that defense is just so scary. Again, playing in that Big 12, which I think is just going to be hell for a lot of teams because of how talented it is. So I'm really looking forward to it. I love what TJ Olsenberger has done with the program. Like, it's really just unbelievable, and I think they're going to be near the top as well.
Yeah, I think that you could just get lost in the Big 12 and realize how many teams are going to be fighting for it at the top. So, again, don't take the first month as a sign of who's going to be winning it all, because they just have a crazy schedule to finish out this year. The Big 12 tournament may be the Final Four, right? Like, it's just a crazy talented year. And Iowa State's gaining a lot of traction finally, right? Their coach is legit. He's getting offers to go everywhere else. He wants to stay. They're bringing in guys that are, going to be around for more than 1 year. They're actually building something from the ground up. And it's all about defense, right? They're going to be a top 3 defense. They're going to play the right way. Fundamentals, not going to make a lot of mistakes. I agree with you that they're going to be a tough out for sure. No one's going to want to see them in the tournament, even if they're the 4th best scorer in the Big 12 coming out of the year. Then no one's going to want to play these guys.
Yeah. Yep. No, I love it. Who's your last team here looking at it?
Awesome. Yeah, keep it short. Last team that I have on the lookout is North Carolina. They're not on the top of anyone's board this year, but RJ Davis coming back, to play for this team just shows you the handle that the coach has on this team, right? It's a new coach as of 3 years ago. He's had success with former players, right? Like, everyone thought that, maybe that magic will run out, and yet RJ's coming back, right? Like, it's people want to be at North Carolina. They want to play for Hubert Davis. They want to play in these games against a team like Duke, who's bringing in the 5 stars and is, down the road favored to win it all, right? Like, don't sleep on North Carolina just because they're the second best team on paper in that state. Like, they are going to be extremely talented once again, and good guard play is going to be the reason, right? They're going to have talent everywhere. It's North Carolina. They're not skimping on talent, but good guard play is going to limit the turnovers, keep the ball moving, keep players in the game who might not be able to create for themselves, finally getting around the Armando Bacot, iceberg that they've been on for a while, right? Like, it's going to be very exciting. So I've got North Carolina. They're like 15th right now in KenPom. They're going to be up in the top 10 by the end of the year.
I love it. The ACC runs through North Carolina or Duke. It really does.
And Virginia is now, decimated with no coach,
exactly.
And they were like the 4th best team. So it's like, you can't not look at North Carolina and Duke and be like, okay, these guys are going to be 30-win teams at the end of the year, right? Like, either of them could be. So
yeah, no, I agree completely. And the fact is these guys get the best recruits too. I mean, there's so many 5-star freshmen at North Carolina as well.
Yep.
The thing is with them is they're just going to be so good with their transition offense. They got so many guards that can just really run the floor. And I mean, I love how you just started with RJ Davis. Like, he's a top 5 player in the country. Like, he's just
Absolutely.
that guy. And the fact that he's coming back is just so, it's going to be huge. And then Ian Jackson is another guy that I absolutely love on their team, who's going to be really, really good. And their offense is just so impressive to me. So if they can elevate their defense, and their rebounding is going to be a key here, just like you talked about the Armando Bacot not being there. I think if that elevates a little bit, then you might see them as like top tier, maybe number 1 in the country. We'll see if that develops. I'm looking forward to seeing how the 5-star freshmen like really look and trim around the edges and make everything like click. But we'll see. I'm excited for North Carolina. I want to watch them more. They're a team I didn't really like lock in on too much last year, but I love watching Hubert Davis' teams. I think he does an unbelievable job. So I'm looking forward to that one. My last team, and this might be a little bit of a homer act, but I don't really care here. I'm going Arizona, and it's because of Trey Townsend coming to Arizona. All right,
Okay.
If you watch their exhibition game, Trey Townsend had 25 points, and the thing that I saw was that he was 5 for 5 from 3. Okay, and if Trey Townsend gets an elite 3-point shooter, I'm telling you, he might be the player of the year. And it's the truth because he is so talented. The only thing that stopped him from going to the draft last year was the jump shot. Okay. And I've seen it when the jump shot hits. We had a game at Toledo where he was 8 for 10 from 3 and had 35 points and absolutely dominated the game. Now, it sucked because that Toledo team didn't miss either and had 112 points against us.
Of course.
All right? So we lost the game. But, like, once Trey Townsend is dialed like that, it's really tough to stop. And, like, they're going to be running the offense through him. There's multiple pieces here that make it work. Arizona's so talented. Like you said, they lost that big that went to Indiana. What's his name?
Yeah,
Ballo, yep, they lost him, but there's multiple pieces here that really make it work, and Caleb Love's back as well, who's going to add to that scoring level. I feel like the scoring will go through Love and Trey, and with that, then you got so many defensive guys to really help out with that. Guys like Jaden Bradley, guys like KJ Lewis. These guys are really good defensive players, and Tommy Lloyd, he's one of the most impressive coaches to me. The thing that's going to be the question with Arizona is, can they win tournament games? They always I have so much expectation for them every year, and then they don't turn it around in the tournament. So that's really going to be a huge step for me. Like, can they turn it around and make things happen in the tournament? And the Big 12 is now way more stacked than it used to be, just like we were talking about. There's Baylor. There's so many teams that are just so talented in the Big 12. So moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 is just going to be a big step. And it's a we'll see moment for Arizona. Like, I'm excited to see them against that talent. But a little bit of a homer pick with Trey. But, I mean, I really think, like, if that level is taken, then Trey turns into one of the best players in the country for me. So,
yeah, no, I think that a couple of things you said that were right on is one, we'll be rooting for Trey no matter what. Like, that's just a fun watch, plays the game the right way. Love that guy. Second, you're talking about, like, their fourth best player in their starting lineup, right? Like, if he can be good, then they're going to be a pretty solid team, right? And that's why you bring in transfers who killed it in the tournament and killed it in their group of 5 conference, like you bring in those guys to give you that extra bump at the end of the year, right? Like, I fully agree. I can't say RJ Davis is the best player and not think that, turn around and think that CJ Love could do that as well. But it's just like, Caleb Love, will he pass them the ball? That's been like his knock. Like, will he get Trey the ball? Will he get their young freshman the ball? Will he facilitate this offense enough to be great? He got them to a 2 seed last year.
Yep.
He can definitely do it. But in the Big 12, is he going to be able to move this offense the way that Tommy Lloyd wants, right? Tommy Lloyd's always going to have talent. He's always going to bring in overseas talent. Like, he's been known for that. Even losing Ballo isn't a bad thing because they have so much around him. He just needs all 5 guys to touch the ball, right? And I think that they're going to be good. So very interested to see how that offense changes with Trey. Will they get him a touch every possession? Will he just sit in the corner? I just really don't know,
Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. There's a lot of options there in Arizona that I think are going to be really interesting. So let's switch over and let's talk about some overrated teams. Okay, you sent me a list that I really liked. So talk to me about, like, if you had to pick one overrated team, who do you got this year?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this one because of what we talked about pre. But my most overrated team, and I don't think any fans of this team are listening, so I'd be all right. My most overrated team going into this year is Boise State. Boise State is chosen to win the Mountain West this year, and people are like, okay, like, who cares? It's the Mountain West. Is that team even going to be ranked in the AP poll? at the end of the year. No, but Mountain West has gotten 6 teams to the tournament before, right? This is
Yeah.
a group that's gotten deep into the tournament after years and years of being first round exits. They even had a Final Four team, championship game team 2 years ago, right? So this is now no longer, this is the Pac 12, right? This is no longer a conference that you can forget about. This is the top West Coast basketball conference outside of Gonzaga in the WCC, right? So
Yeah.
people are high on them. I just don't understand the Boise hype. Like, returning your players, so what? Does that mean they weren't good enough to go to Kentucky? Like, what does that mean? San Diego State is, picked 4th out of this conference to win it all, and they've consistently been the best team, right? Last year, people were high on Utah State and Boise State. I think they both got bounced, right? Like, I just feel like people are too big on like who is going to run this conference and not realize like history matters, right? Performance under pressure matters. Boise State's shown me nothing. So I know you've got a matchup against them. I'd love to hear maybe the opposite side of that, or why they might surprise people. But a top 50 KenPom ranking for Boise State doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And to be honest, like when you look at Boise State, they're not the sexiest team. They really just aren't. They run a lot through their bigs. Their main guys, Tyson Dagnall and Oman Stanley, I believe, is the other guy. But these two, like, I'm watching them, and it's like, okay, they're very solid team. They were 7 seed last year. They lost to Colorado in the first round, and I was watching. I'm just like, they're good, but I don't really see too much. Like, they're all right, but as I watched more, like, they're just really, really talented guys. Especially Dagenhart, who's been their leading scorer the past 2 years, and he's now a senior coming in, and he's just so fundamentally sound. Can get to the basket, is really good with pump fakes, can create off of the right shoulder, left shoulder, can shoot threes. And then Stanley came in last year and is one of the most athletic bigs you'll see in mid-major teams. Like, he's just outstanding. Can shoot it a little bit. He's super physical. He's all over the place. He's around 6'11", 7 foot, just an absolute monster. And with these guys creating, like, I really feel like Boise State can make some noise. I'm excited to see them. I like what you're saying, that they're a little overrated, because I do agree. And that's just because I don't think people are putting the Mountain West like where it deserves. San Diego State is a good team, and there's multiple teams in that conference where you're just like, man, like, it's going to be tough for them. So I completely agree with what you're saying, that they're maybe not a top 50 KenPom rating. They're going to be tough, though. And I do feel like 100% that they're a tournament team and will be around that table this year. So I like what you're saying with them being overrated. Maybe top 25 good. I don't think so, and they got some votes to get into the top 25. So I like what you're saying, that they're a little overrated. I'm really looking forward to seeing them in person and seeing how good they look. But
Totally.
Overall, like, I think it'll be interesting this year. They're normally a fun watch, so I'm excited over there. I think my overrated team this year, I'm gonna roll with Kentucky, and it's not to continue to dunk on them, but
punching down.
Exactly. Like, this year, I mean, they're sitting at number 22 in the country, but there's just so much new here. Like, this is a lot of pressure on any first year coach. Mark Pope is going into, like, this is like Kalen DeBoer going into the Alabama job. It really is. Like, there's just so much pressure on you to win right away. And especially with what happened last year. Like, Calipari is gone for that reason. Like, it was all the pressure buildup. That was the reason why he left. So there's so much pressure to win now, and there's just so much new that I feel like it's almost an impossible ask. And this isn't like anything roster based. Like, I think the roster could fit 100%, and I think things could work out. This is to me just an impossible ask, because you have people like decommitting right away as Calipari leaves, and your transfer portal, your recruits, they're not the same once he leaves. Like, it's not top tier. So Mark Pope's really going to have to develop a system and prove to recruits that he still got it at Kentucky. And I feel like it's just a really, really difficult ask, and that's why I got them as my number one.
Yeah, I like that. They were on my list as well, and it's not because they're, supposed to win it all and won't. It's just that it's tough to replace an entire program like that, replace an entire Calipari in one season, and I feel like that's maybe the expectation that some Kentucky fans are going to have. And, you got to let the guy build, you know? At the same time, though, they did go after other coaches, right? They made that known. They went after the top guys and missed. And getting
Yeah.
a former player is great. I think that that's a better culture fit. But when has that really worked? You know, not a ton.
Mhm.
So a lot of pressure's on the guy. The team is just not that deep. Like they're going to be figuring themselves out all year. I like them in some big games, but don't count on me to pick them for the Elite Eight Sweet 16 weekend this year. I'm expecting them to fail because of what other people are setting them up to be. I think if you
Yeah.
expect them to cause chaos in the SEC and make the tournament, I'm all for that. But I agree with you there. I'm not seeing Kentucky in the Final Four.
I like it. I like it. Moving on, let's go to some underrated teams. Okay. For me, I feel like I'm putting St. John's as my underrated. And Rick Pitino, man, he has brought in some guys here. And I really think with St. John's, the program has continued to build in the positive direction. And we talked about the Big East. It's UConn and everybody else. And I think that everybody else, like we had it, I said Creighton's up near the top. They look really, really good this year with Cockburner coming back and all those guys. And I feel like the next two are St. John's and Xavier. And St. John's has really brought in a lot of guys. You know, they got R.J. Lewis. They got cannot pronounce his last name. Though. I'm looking at looking at him. Aaron Scott. You know, multiple guys that can really like pop and make things happen. And Rick Pitino here, I think, has created a good culture and has gotten things going. You know. So with St. John's, they ended up getting a lot of wins near the end of the year and were a hot team near the end. So I'm excited to see if this can continue and their freshmen can make things work on the offensive end and can trim around the edges. So I'm excited for St. John's. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, they were on my list as well. I think that there's no reason for Big East teams don't make the Final Four again, right? We said that it's definitely top heavy with UConn and Creighton, but they've been good, 8 deep in the last 5 4 years. It's like an exciting conference, and he's won those big games.
Yeah.
People think, well, Providence and Villanova have fallen off. It's like, have they? They're winning tournament games, right? They're placing in the tournament every single year, and it's like I just don't know. I think St. John's is rightfully third in that conference. Can go toe to toe with the Creightons and the UConns, come March. So I'm interested to see. Like people may be down on them when they lose a couple big games in December, January, but let's see where they are in March. Let's see what seed Rick Pitino gets them to, right? Let's see like what can actually happen when they have a path in the tournament. So I fully agree with you, man. They're going to be really exciting. Got the top transfer this year, brought in some cool freshmen. Like it's going to be really exciting.
I like it. I like it. Who's your overrated or underrated team this year?
Yeah, my underrated team this year, and it's not a team that I'm picking to go super far, but it's LSU, right? And
LSU.
it's a
I
very
like it.
interesting pick. They got picked bottom 3 in the SEC this year, and if you look at past performance, like totally agree, right? They're a football school. They're somebody that's not going to put a lot of attention into basketball, right? But the coach that they have over there, that they brought over from Murray State, right, with Ja Morant, like he knows how to build a program from nothing to making a tournament team. He's
Yeah.
had success there in the past. You know what I mean? Like they have everything in place in terms of coaching staff. They just need the players, right? And what have they done? They've gone out and they've gotten transfers. They're bringing in people from the state of Louisiana, where it's not really a basketball state. They're trying to home grow it, and I think this is finally the year. This is finally the year they do it, right? Kentucky's down. People are thinking that Florida might be the one to come out of the SEC, right? Alabama and Auburn are kind of at the top. No one really knows what's going on in the middle, right? Ole Miss with Chris Beard, maybe they get it. There's no
Yeah.
reason that LSU can't go from finishing 14th in the SEC to finishing 8th, right? And what does that mean for the fans? Yeah, it's not going to be a championship year, but that means tournament. That means exposure. That means
Mhm.
freshmen know your name, right? LSU has been at the bottom for a while since I think Ben Simmons was there. No one's really
Yeah.
talked about them as being a team. Well, I guess they just had what's his name from the Nets, Cam
Thomas. Yep.
Cam Thomas, right? Since the Cam Thomas team, since Will Wade got kicked out, right? No
Yep.
one's really talked about them. That's because they've been building it the right way. I think that LSU and their head coach, they're going to cause some noise. People are underrating them for all the wrong reasons. They are looking for the flash, and LSU is going to just beat you with fundamental basketball.
I love it. I love it. I think the SEC, there's a lot of teams that you could really like look down and be like, oh, this team could be good. This team could be good. Like an Ole Miss, perfect example. Like a lot of people were shocked that they started undefeated last year, and they were really, really good. Chris Beard is coming in there and trying to build his way back up from his mistake,
Totally.
and like he's created a great team at Ole Miss, and there's multiple teams like that will give you fits. I mean, Texas A&M looks really, really good this year, and
Texas too, yeah.
Texas, yeah, there's multiple teams in this SEC conference that are legit. So I'm excited to see the SEC personally, and I think LSU they
definitely
could be really, really good.
Overperform where teams or experts have them. I'm hoping they get in the tournament. I'm not saying that's their ceiling. They could make a run, but they just got to get over that initial hump, win those 20 games, get in the tourney, start getting the recruits. Like this coach needs time to build. Then all of a sudden, John Morant's taken to the second round, right? It's just like the coaching speaks to me, so I like that.
Yeah. No, I love it. Well, Asher, this has been a lot of fun, man. I mean, we're on year 3 of this and previewing the year. So Monday it starts, man. I'm pumped. I'm super excited, man.
I know Monday is going to be great. I'm going to have ESPN Plus on at 11 a.m. Central watching Baylor versus some charity game. Like it's going to be just one of the best watches. I'm so excited for it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, that's going to wrap up the show for today. Big thank you to Asher Smith for joining the show. This has been a lot of fun. And that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Peace.